In this lesson, you will learn how to fully answer the question and score highly in the task achievement section of the band descriptors. Here are your lesson know-its. By the end of the lesson, you will have a better understanding of which key information and data to discuss in your answer. You will also understand how to create a very quick plan to help you write a well-structured and well-developed answer. Again, please make sure you review the lesson know-its at the end of this lesson, and if you have any questions, please use the Q&A feature of this course. Before we move on, let's review the 6 question types in Ielts Writing Task 1. Try pausing the video and see if you can name these 6 different types of visual information. And here are the names of the 6 question types. For the first 5 types of visual information, that's bar graphs, line graphs, pie charts, tables and maps, there are 4 key questions you must ask yourself to make sure you're describing the key information. Now, for processors, it's a slightly different method of answering and selecting key information, but I will also show you how to do that. To reach a Band 7 score in Ielts Writing Task 1, you must ensure that you cover the requirements of the task, and that is to summarize, report and describe the data and information that you are given. You also need to clearly present and highlight key features. By asking yourself these 4 key questions coming up, you ensure that you mark off these 2 requirements and you can score higher marks. For all graphs, charts and maps, you must ask yourself and answer these 4 key questions. First, what is the key data shown? In graphs and charts, look to the axes. In tables, look to columns and rows, and on the maps, look for keys or any other information given. Then consider the key trends. Does the data increase or does it decrease? Then ask yourself, what are the big differences or similarities? Is there anything that remains the same, or are there big gaps between data given? Differences and similarities are also very important for maps. And the last question is, can I group the data into 2 groups? This makes a lot of sense when writing and being able to logically order your answer. Write these 4 key questions down and we'll practice using them to help us plan some answers. Using our 4 key questions, we'll look at previous Ielts Writing Task 1 visual information and analyse the data and select key information which we could describe. Beginning with this bar graph, what is the key data shown? You may remember I suggested thinking about titles, X and Y axes or keys, and this bar graph has all 4. The graph shows us fiction book sales, which we can see from the title, and the key to the right of the graph shows what types of books were being sold. The x-axis records this over 5 years, and on the y-axis we can see the total amount or gross earnings of each type of book. What trends can you see in this graph? Are there any increases or decreases which seem like a key feature? Romance novels, which is the green bar, increases steadily from 2008 to 2010. From 2007 to 2009, sci-fi and fantasy novels decrease over this period. Another trend could be from 2006 to 2007, mystery and romance novels both increased quite dramatically. It's important to note that you only select and describe the big trends and big differences and similarities. If there isn't anything interesting about the data, it's better to not describe it. So, what about the differences and similarities in this graph? The biggest difference I can see is between romance novels and sci-fi and fantasy. Romance novels have much higher gross earnings than sci-fi and fantasy, and therefore sell a lot more books. For a similarity, you might report young adult and classic novels, and between the years 2007 to 2009, their gross earnings were pretty much the same. And could we put this data into two groups? Well, it seems that we definitely could. By using the key, it might be easiest and most logical to put mystery and romance novels together, as they're the highest. The lowest gross earners, which is young adults, classics and sci-fi and fantasy, could make up your second group. By putting the data into two groups, it will really help you structure and organize your answer, and I'll be showing you a lot more about this later in the course. Now we'll use our 4 key questions to analyze the data from a pie chart from a previous Ielts writing exam. First up, what is the key data? We can see from the title that the pie chart shows the total school spending and budget over 2 different years. What trends can we see? Well, first I can see that teachers' salaries increased by 10%, while other workers' salaries decreased by 6%. I can also see that the budget for resources rose by 5%, whereas furniture and equipment fell by 10%. What differences and similarities can you see between these two pie charts? Well, the first thing I notice is that salaries remain the highest percentage of total spending. Insurance remains round about the same at between 2 to 3%. And for our last key question, can I group the data into 2 groups? Well, this is quite easy for the visual information we have. It would make perfect sense to group between the 2 years of 1981 and 1991. And again, this will help you to structure your answer and have 2 paragraphs where you give lots of information. I'll tell you more about this later in the course. How about we take a look at using the 4 key questions to find and select key information for maps. So what is the key data shown on these maps? Well, I can see that it's between 2 different time periods, 1995 and present. The other information shown is the key landmarks on each map, such as housing, farmland, fishing ports and shops. Now, for maps, there aren't any trends for you to describe, so you can dismiss this question, but you must concentrate on differences and similarities. So what are the differences and similarities in these 2 maps? The first thing I notice is that the farmland and the forest park has been developed into a golf course and tennis courts. I can also see that housing has increased as the town has gotten bigger. In the 1995 map, the shops and fish markets have become restaurants and apartments. And where there was a fishing port in 1995, that is no longer there in the present day. The cafe and hotel have remained unchanged, although the hotel has built additional car parking space. How could you separate the map into 2 groups of data? Well, there are lots of ways that you could do this, but I would probably split the map into the top and the bottom. That way I'd be describing housing, farmland, forest park, golf and tennis courts together, and then the next group would be everything underneath that. But whatever way you can logically do it, it's completely fine and up to you. So we've looked at charts and graphs and maps, but what about processors? How can you analyze the data shown there? Let's take a look now. The way that we analyze data in a process diagram is very different to that of maps, graphs, and charts. That's because the main focus here is to describe stages. The stages of the process diagram are our main interest, and this is what you will analyze and identify as your key features. From looking at the process diagram above, we can see that there are 8 stages in this process. The beginning is with the cows eating grass, and the end result or product is milk, cheese, cream, and butter. In your writing, you'll want to describe in more detail what each stage does. And it's also important to try and break up the process diagram into 2 groups. From looking at the process diagram of dairy product production, I would simply split the groups into the first 4 stages and the second 4 stages, and that will help me to organize my writing and structure my answer. We've now looked at how to analyze and identify key information for all 6 question types. But even before we start writing next, we need to think about making a quick plan. So let's discuss that now. There are some teachers who suggest not to make a plan due to the 20-minute suggested time limit. However, I think if you can create a good plan in 1 minute, it will help you score higher marks in IELTS Writing Task 1. So, how can we create a quick, useful plan? I'll demonstrate with a previous IELTS Writing Task 1 question. The graph below compares the number of visits of 2 new music websites online. Summarize the information by selecting and reporting the main features and make comparisons where relevant. The plan I'm going to show you now contains only 3 parts and can quickly be made in under 1 minute. Have a look at this. At first, you might be a little bit confused, but I guarantee this method of planning will be quick and also help you write a well-rounded, higher scoring answer. So, let me explain what each part means. G1 and G2 means Group 1 and Group 2. In the next lesson, I'll show you the exact structure you need to write your IELTS Writing Task 1 answer, and having these 2 groups is very important. So, my first Group 1 is from day 1 to 7, and that will be 1 detailed paragraph. My next group is from day 8 to 15, and that will make another detailed paragraph. I'll be teaching you how to write a short overview paragraph also in the next lesson. But to help plan for that, here in my overview plan, M equals music choice and P equals pop parade. I want to briefly describe in my overview what the main trends are without giving specific data and figures. So for music choice, we can see that it starts low and begins to rise around week 11. It remains relatively high with a slight dip in the final day. Pop Parade starts quite high and dips around week 7, where it then rises again and then finishes at a high level. This quick plan will ultimately save you time by organising your ideas and giving you some extra structure for when you begin writing your answer. Here is another IELTS Writing Task 1 question, and I want you to use the Q&A feature to show me a plan for this question. You can pause the video and start making your plan, and here are your lesson notes. Please make sure you review them, and if you feel confident, move on. If not, go back through this lesson and take some more notes. You can also drop me a message if you have any questions. See you in the next lesson.